Yes.
I'm here with Manu Jimenez, this beautiful man right here, who runs sound for...
Sir.
Sir. No, who do you run sound for?
Yes, sir. I'm running sound for Sir.
Dad joke. Awesome. Well, we got some cool stuff here that is not normally what we see out here. Definitely going to get to all this little cool LV1 stuff, but I want to hit reverse a little bit and back it up into how'd you get into sound, man? What got you into it? And first off, where are you from?
Funny enough, I was born here in Atlanta.
Okay, well, welcome back home.
I lived here for like 2 years.
Okay.
And I grew up in Costa Rica.
Okay.
That's where my family's from.
So you left America to go?
Very young, yeah, because my dad was in college here, so once he was done, headed back to Costa Rica. My mom's from Cuba, my dad's from Costa Rica, and I grew up in Costa Rica.
Okay.
Then when I was, at a certain age for college, I came out here, and I stayed, kind of hung around.
So what got you into the sound portion?
I started playing in bands, and I had a band, wrote songs with my good friend in high school. And I was always very into recording. I kind of learned to play guitar with a little 4-track,
Yeah.
One of those little Tascam Porta Studios.
Yep.
Just recorded myself. And that's how I kind of learned, play a little, record, that sucks, go back. And that's how I kind of learned to play and to sing and write songs. So yeah, we had a band, and we did a bunch of shows down there in Costa Rica.
What was the band name?
It's called Alma Bohemia, which means like Bohemian Soul. So yeah, it was like a cool rock band, and I learned a lot, and I always recorded the demos, and then we recorded an album, and I got really into the whole process. So I was kind of helping the guy that was doing it. He would make me do all the editing and run all the cables, patch, all that stuff in the studio when we were doing our album. So then he was like, hey, come help me out on other bands I do. So I started helping him out, and running also like live sound for some of my friends and stuff. So I got into it really young.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what got you into touring?
Well,
tell me about your first tour. How'd you get onto it?
Oh man, I had kind of a weird experience in the touring because I come from a studio background.
Sure.
I did many years of that. But I also always did, since I moved to Los Angeles in 2008, I always did playback for TV shows.
For TV shows?
Yes. So I was assisting Pablo Munguia, who, back then he used to do American Idol and the Grammys and the Oscars. And so I was assisting him, and then he would put me on to do some shows like People's Choice Awards, Kids' Choice Awards. So I was running playback for these TV shows, and I met a few people there, and then there was always a friend that worked at Ellen show. And he would call me. He'd call me like 5 different times, like, hey, can you come such and such day? I'm like, sure, yeah. And then he would come back like, no, didn't pan out. So then the one time that it did pan out, it was Mary J. Blige. So I met the camp, and they had to do some edits because they were coming in from Asia. The session was all messy. It was a new song. So we did some edits to the track, and they were really happy. And their playback guy had just left. So tour manager asked me, hey man, you want to go do some one-offs? I'm like, what's a one-off? So yeah, crazy enough, my first tour was running playback for Mary J. Blige.
Wow.
It started like that. I did like a few one-offs, then we did a little casino run, and then they're like, man, you want to do this whole summer tour? I'm like, sure, let's go. So I did that for like 5 years. But I come from a mixing background, recording studio background.
Yeah.
So I gravitated naturally towards that.
Yeah. So let me ask you this: do you feel like it's easy to go from, since you came from the studio?
Yes.
Is it easy to go from studio to live or live to studio? Do you think?
Man, that's a tough question. I think either direction is hard. What I learned coming from studio to live is you have to be very humble about that change because it's very different. Studio is a very controlled environment.
Yeah.
You can do it again and again and again and again. You can sit on a track for days, and like tweak it and like all this, that. So that was the hard part, to like learn to be a little faster, learn to develop systems where I could, make a show go quicker.
Sure.
So that was the challenge more for me. The advantage I feel I have is more from like a critical listening standpoint.
Yeah.
You really learn to listen differently in the studio.
Yeah.
And I worked with Gavin Lurson for 5 years in his mastering studio. So he really honed me in on really listening to very small little details and catching things, So that experience, was amazing. Just working on so many records every day. We would do like 3 or 4 albums we would master every day. So it was a fast-paced scenario and very high quality. So I learned a lot from Gavin and his team.
Do you miss it?
I don't, man. I don't. That was like a stage in my life, but I like where I am now. I get to do a little bit of studio stuff. I still do some like Atmos mixing and some production for some artists, but I'm on the road. Let's say half the year. So.
Okay, so you were on with Mary J.
Yes.
Tell me after that. What happened after that one?
After that.
How was that tour?
That was fun. I did 5 years. I did several tours with her.
5 years as playback?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, 5 years running playback. And I just used it as a learning experience to just, go learn how they patch the stage, how, like I said, kind of what systems they were developing there. So I learned a lot from her monitor guy, who was one of my mentors, Cheney Harp, and James Hardy Martin, another guy that I really admire. And I learned a lot from them of just how they would work a show like that, a big show with a lot of moving parts, a big band.
Yeah.
So I took that as a learning opportunity, and then, once you have that name in your resume, it's easy to jump into like smaller acts and do front of house. So I toured with Cody Simpson for a little bit.
Okay.
And then I jumped on with Snow Allegra.
Okay.
Who else have I done? And after that, I've kind of been like moving around a lot. Lately, I've worked with an artist called Naya. I'm with Sir now. Last year, I mixed Escape quite a bit. They're from Atlanta.
Yeah.
Who else? Layla Hathaway, I've mixed. So staying in that R&B world, I work a lot of promo stuff with Brandy.
Okay.
Like when she goes to like the Grammys or BET Awards, I'm helping her there. And then, just I've had the chance to work with some amazing artists. It's great.
So how'd you get connected with this artist?
Funny enough, they were on tour with SZA.
Okay.
And my friend Cheney was filling in monitors. And Cheney was the one that recommended me for this gig because they said, we're trying to keep it a very tight crew. We need somebody that runs playback, monitors, and front of house. And Cheney said, I know a guy.
I got just the guy.
So yeah, and then the last few years this audio package is a work in progress that I've kind of been building up to this moment now it's in a truck. I've done a lot of flight dates with it. But I'm also supplying all the sound, like all the microphones, wireless, RF in-ears, and stage boxes, everything.
Wow. So this is a little bit different console than I'm used to seeing out here. Talk to me about your process of choosing this. Why this one?
Well, I used to tour a lot with like Digicos, and I always had a Waves server, right? So when I found this, I was like, it's like you just use the Wave server as your whole console. So it made sense to me. Like instead of having, like a plugin like F6 that I love as a general EQ, you can just have that on every channel.
Yeah.
And at first I read stuff about it, like, it's very unstable. But I talked to the guys at Waves, and they're like, no, like this thing works if you. And I talked to several guys that toured with it. One being Gerardo Dalbo, which is one of the guys I really admire, and he had toured with it with Patti Smith, I think, and he used to tour with Amy Winehouse when she was in her prime. But yeah, he told me, man, if you get the right gear and the right cables and you test it out, it works. And I've done hundreds of shows with it, haven't had an issue. So
wow,
it's been really good. Yeah, and it's you know, you can on the flight package, I can wheel it into the hotel room. I can run virtual sound trick off there. You know, it has many advantages. It's modular, so depending on what show I'm on, I can take up more stage boxes or less.
Yeah.
And yeah, I really like it. You know.
What would be your advice to somebody coming from going into the R&B hip hop genre for the first time?
Man, I don't know. That's a good question. For me, it was weird because I did grow up in Costa Rica, but my mom used to listen to Janet and Sade.
Yeah.
You know, and a lot of R&B music growing up. So I was kind of exposed to it since a very young age. But I would say the first thing is just listen to a lot of records.
Sure.
Go listen to like old recordings and then some of the newer stuff, and go listen to some shows and kind of get the vibe of the aesthetics of the sound, you know. But it's like that with anything, you know. If you're mixing rock, it's a little different. If you're mixing like jazz, R&B, or more like traditional jazz, like whatever genre you're in, you kind of have to adjust.
Yeah.
So I say just listen to recordings and listen to shows if you can.
Okay.
That would be the great way to jump in.
How much of this is him, and how many band members do you have on this?
For this tour, there's a trio. So there's drums, bass, and keyboards.
Okay.
And the rest is all playback.
Okay.
And then just Sir.
Okay.
For vocals. So it's and then we did the Europe run, which is kind of curious. We didn't take the band, but what we did was we recorded them in LA. So I multi-tracked them because I knew I was going to be doing. We did rehearsals for like a week. Then we were going to be doing Europe without the band, and then we were going to be doing US with the band. So the way I approached it was, in rehearsal, I multi-tracked the band into the same Ableton session that I'm running the playback on. So I multi-tracked them in there. So when I went to Europe, I had the band in there, but I had it all stemmed out. I had kick, snare bottom, snare two, there's two bottom, like every channel just laid out so I worked those shows. When we got back to LA, everything was the same. Their inner mixes were the same. We just swapped back from the playback back to the live microphones, and it worked great. So that was fun. It was like I've never done that like that, you know. Like usually, like you would multi-track for like a virtual sound check, right? But here I just decided to multi-track straight into that session. So
that's cool.
And with the LV1, since I'm using the SoundGrid driver for playback, that driver can go from like 4 channels to 128 and everything in the middle. So I just went, I had a 32 channel driver for Europe. Now I have a 16 channel driver, but it was all the band was in there.
So I'm guessing there's not much outboard we're using with this.
No.
I'm assuming there's some native stuff or in the box stuff we're using.
Yes. So I'm using all the Waves stuff on my channels, and then I run Super Rack Performer for my reverbs.
Okay.
So depending on the artist, I'll change that up. But for Sir, I have a Valhalla plate and some Valhalla vintage verbs. I really like those. But some artists, I might change that up. I might have some UA stuff, some Lexicon, or some EMT plate.
What do you think is one of the most common mistakes that people make when they first start mixing R&B and hip hop?
Man, maybe like just making sure the low end is right. I feel like sometimes it's like too much bass.
Sure, which is ironic because this is like a bass heavy.
Yes, but it has to be.
How do you balance
controlled.
that?
I think it's like very much about controlling it.
Okay.
Making sure it's sitting in the right place, because if it's too little, it doesn't work. If it's too much, it's too crazy.
I'm sure that could get away from you really quick.
Yes, especially on these smaller like clubs with big PAs. We're doing like 2,000 cap rooms.
Yeah.
So I think the low end is a very, very important thing to get right.
How do you personally clean that up?
Man, I have I have a lot of side chaining going on.
Okay.
So my kick, side chaining all of my bass channels.
Okay.
That's one thing that I think helps a lot. That makes me be able to put the bass maybe a little louder in the mix, but the kick still comes through.
Sure.
And then I low cut some of the very low end, you know, like
Sure.
below 20 hertz, you know,
Sure.
I don't think that helps too much, you know. So
How many bass channels?
we have a key bass, we have a bass guitar, which I double to another channel and I run into like an amp simulator on the
Oh, cool.
desk. And then we have an 808 channel on the playback, which comes in rarely, but when it comes in, it's pretty big.
Yeah.
And then a separate bass channel, because some of the tracks have like Sir's uncle playing bass.
Oh.
So it's kind of like a very nostalgic vibe.
Yeah.
And then he plays the bass on top of that.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a filtered stuff. So it's more like, there's a couple of songs where there's some of the track bass is still in there with the electric bass or
Yeah.
the key bass. Yeah.
What do you feel like separates a good engineer from a great engineer?
Man, I think a lot of it is just really caring about it, you know?
Yeah.
Just really dedicating yourself to, you know, you have to be a little neurotic about stuff, you know, very detail oriented, you know? Make sure everything's correct. Today we were battling with the system for a while just to get it, there's ghosts in here or something. We had digital glitches and stuff. I don't know if it was in the lake or the way we were routing to it, but you know, we took an hour and a half just to make that right.
Yeah.
A lot of guys might have been like, just plug it in analog, let's go.
Yeah.
You know, I'm very much of if I can spend extra time that I have to make it right, and I'm the same way about everything, about every input, just, you know, take care of every little input. Make sure it's got its place, it's got the right processing.
Sure.
I feel like a lot of these like digital desks also, there's a lot of over processing. So
Yeah.
less is more, you know.
Yeah.
Less is more. You know,
Some people would say it's kind of intimidating doing a PA de jour tour. What's your process into walking into a room? Are you a virtual sound check? Are you a pink noise? How do you get everything to where you want it?
Well, since I started touring, I've been using the same song. I use one song to tune the PA.
And what's that?
I use Daft Punk, Game of Love.
Okay. Why that one? Just familiarity with the song?
Yeah, I think I just know it really well. It's also very like, it's a very clean recording. It's got a little bit of electronic and a little bit of acoustic.
Yeah.
So I think that helps. And it's a Mick Gazowski mix, which is one of my favorite engineers of all time. Just great. So it's very balanced. It has a lot of low end. So if you play that song in here and you can feel the low end, that's good. It's almost like it should be a little heavy, right? Just because the song is. And then it's got like just the very intro, they play like this little ride pattern. It just gives you like a nice crisp. It's just very balanced mix. So if that song sounds correct, and then I use the same song also because sometimes, especially in these clubs, you'll pull up a mix, you'll pull up that song, and I'm like, listen to it for like 5 seconds. I'm like, wait a second.
Yeah.
Is there an EQ on this thing? Like, what are you? Because like I can hear it.
Yeah.
I can hear it's like it's been manipulated.
Yeah.
So a lot of the times with these modern PAs, I feel like, again, less is more.
Sure.
A lot of the time I just run them pretty flat. Today I think I shaved up a little high end just because it's like right in our face. But I didn't do anything else.
Do you typically trust the room when you go into it? Because a lot of these, they've spent a bit of time tuning it and getting it ready, or do you ask them to like give you nothing?
I'll first listen to whatever they have.
Got it.
And then a lot of the time I will, if I hear it, a lot of the time I'll ask them to take it out. I'm one, like my belief is you can fix room acoustics, you cannot fix them with EQ. It's just physically impossible. You can fix them here, but then if you walk over there.
Yeah.
So, it's just the theory of just getting the best sound averaging out everywhere in the room, right? And also a good representation here. So whatever decisions I make apply to the general, but a lot of the times when I've told them to mute, to like cut that EQ, it'll be, like a bunch of cuts everywhere, and you're just sucking the life out of the thing. It's like, let it be. These things are like, they also spend a lot of time building these boxes and testing them, and so whatever like the preset is for like the hang and the angles and the way the PA is meant to throw, that's fine. But like as far as musical EQ, I try to keep it very minimal, you know?
So what's your advice to people that are going to just start doing a club tour where it's PA du jour and they're a little bit nervous of like tuning a bunch of different PAs?
Yeah.
I mean, that could be intimidating. And this is really your first step up the ring for that.
You have to go through that.
You have to go through this. So what's your advice to someone who's never done this before?
Well, I would say get music you like to play, like stick to the same song, don't change your song every day. And just use your ears and listen, you know? And sometimes there's, and this is my belief again, like it gets to the point where the PA is not gonna sound any better than like the detail and the clarity of stuff. And just get it to the point where it's the best, you know?
Yeah.
Thankfully, a lot of the clubs in this level have nice systems, you know, they have nice D&B rigs, they have nice acoustics rigs, or Adamson, or Claire. You know, they'll have something that's, and you know, those systems are all great. You
Sure.
know? If you can't make those things sound good, it's not the PA, you know? It's like, they all sound really, really, really good. So, and then trust your ears and do minimal EQ. If you're like doing a bunch of stuff, something's off, you know? Unless you're in a very, very bad PA situation where, okay, and same thing, I would try to make broad steps, you know, like use a shelf to control your high end, you know. Don't when you start like digging frequencies like on a graphic and stuff like that, that starts smearing everything. All your phase coherence is gonna go insane.
Yeah.
You know? So I come from the studio, I've never used a graphic EQ. The only graphic EQ is like API 500 series, I think it's a 560. It's like a vibe EQ. That's like get guitars, you can like really play with it to get a nice sound. But as far as to tune a room or a PA or a wedge, I never used a graphic EQ in my life.
So this one you're doing front of house and monitors and playback?
Yes, the playback rig lives here.
Okay.
But our stage manager controls it over there. We're using Abel set, so he can control the session from there. So, because he's in communication with the artist and the band and gets all the cues. But it's here just so if anything goes, I can troubleshoot it. And also, since the beginning of the tour, I've been kind of like doing like little level things here and there.
Yeah.
In the session, so I can just, you know, it's like, oh, that's the third show that felt a little loud. Let me just bring that down.
Yeah.
So then the less writing I have to do on my playback faders.
Do you mind walking us through some of what you got up there?
Let's go.
All right.
All right. We're on the wrong side of the snake now.
I love that. What do we got over here?
Cool. So we can start on this side. This is one of the stage boxes that I use for this show. It's basically mostly keyboards, bass keyboards, and a couple of talkbacks, some of the talkbacks on stage. And then this feeds the wired packs, the band I have on wired packs.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes, the band I have on wired packs. And this API that's on top, I use it for kick and snare. So this gets kick, this gets snare, and it sends out AES into this box here. So that's just a nice, you know, I have it in my studio, so I'm like, let's just take it on the road, man. I'm like, what do I use it on? Kick and snare, all right. Then this is the other stage box, which is a new stage box developed by Waves. I really like this stage box. So this feeds all my wireless here, the outputs, and then these are all my drum mics. I'm using the Axiom Digital for Sir and the guest, so two channels, Sir and guest mic. Those get fed AES into the system.
You're using a lot of AES.
Yes, I like keep things clean, man. Keep it digital,
smart.
Keep it clean. Yeah, the cool thing about that desk also I can do. There's like 2 or 3 songs where we use auto-tune for like a color, you know. So I can just use that on the plugin on the desk.
That's smart.
I don't have to go through the dreaded Apollo and back out. Like I prefer to keep it like this. His vocals just straight in, gets processed, just straight out. And then these are our in-ears for basically Sir, spare, a tech pack, and a guest.
What are we using for microphones?
We have the Nexodyne capsules. Ha. So yeah, Shure sent these out for the tour. So I have him on the super cardioid. And yeah, man, this thing's been great. It's very little bleed. It's nice and clean. Sounds great on his voice. So yeah, I've been using that. And then I have the cardioid one on the guest mic.
Oh, that's actually smart.
Yes, so because I got one of each. So I put him on the super cardioid and use the cardioid on the guest mic. It's a little darker. The other one cuts through a little more, but I've been loving that capsule. Really good, and it's really simple, man. Basically from here, it's a Cat 5 snake up to front of house, and that's it.
What are we using for drum mics?
Come on over.
Let's go.
So most of the drum mics are SE Electronics. So I have V-Beats on all the snares and E7s on the snare bottoms and hi-hats. I have the 4400s on the overheads, which kind of like 414s. I love this thing, man. It's the BL8. So I worked on this when it was a prototype. I worked with him on it, and I love this mic. So just one mic on the kick, just the BL8. That's it.
No kick out, huh?
No kick out. And then I'm using some 904s for my toms. Let me clean this up now that I see this. Now that I'm here, why not? So yeah, 3 904s for my toms. And that's it, man. Simple setup. We have SPD. So we have a kick trigger for some kick drums, and then we have just some pads and stuff. That's it. The rest of it is pretty straightforward. It's all DIs. So we have Kronos. This is actually the brand new Moog. Our keyboard player LJ was one of the artists that got these before and tested it. So now I can show it to you because it's out. But for a moment there, we were kind of hiding it. But it's super cool, polyphonic synth, all analog. It's got 8 voices. It's phenomenal. And then over here, Bass World. He's got the sub 37 for the key bass, and then that's his main bass. Sounds really good. He actually just got this from a custom shop in Nashville. Sounds really good. And then the jazz bass goes through the pedal, and it's got like a funky, kind of like a funky filter that he uses on some songs. And then you just got an A/B box to switch. And that's it. A lot of talkbacks. They each have a talkback mic, and we have a few double switch situations where keyboard player can talk to Sir or to the band. Same thing, our stage manager can talk to like kind of everybody or just talk to us. Let's try to keep like the calm situation clean so everybody can.
So are these guys behind the LED wall the whole time?
Yes. So this is really cool actually, the way it is. If you come over here, when they're not doing this, but basically you can see through the wall. So when it's black, like if you see as the black goes by, you can see what's behind it as the black goes by.
Oh yeah, check that out.
So, and with the lighting, when they light them from behind or from above, sometimes we'll have like, let's say, the video wall showing like smoke on the video wall.
Yeah.
But there's parts that are black, so you can see the band behind them. Super cool. So they do all those kinds of effects.
I've noticed it's a very clean stage as well.
Yes, there's nothing on here. So it's
no side fills, no nothing, not a lot of stage noise.
No stage noise. We try to keep it clean on that, and then all this is Sir space to perform. And then the band back there, I think it's really cool because sometimes when the video wall's there at the beginning of the show, you don't even know that they're there. They're playing, and then they appear, you know. So it's kind of a cool reveal, and it's also cool to just not have a live band playing.
Yeah.
Especially for Sir's music, I think it really really lends itself to that. It needs that live. And these are his homeboys. They've been playing for years, man. So
That is awesome.
yeah, these are his friends. Great musicians and great singer, great artist. So yeah, man.
We're back over here. I usually do this like snap thing, but I just didn't do that this time. Sorry, people. Tell me about the craziest mix you've ever done.
Oh my God. For live?
Yes. Like you walked into something crazy or like something that's way off the wall. What sticks out to you as like one of like, okay, that was of all the shows I've done, that was one of them.
Yeah, a crazy fun show I did was for Dorian Electra.
Okay.
She's a young artist. She's up and coming, but she had a one-time performance at the Fonda in LA, and we filmed it, and it was crazy, man. We had an opera singing clown. Yes, opera singing clown. There were horns in a few songs, dancers, lights, a guillotine. So yeah, it was like kind of a theatrical performance. We used the balcony actually at the Fonda. They have a very nice balcony that I've done a few shows there, never used that. So she came out of the balcony and like sang up there a song. And it's super cool. And then I got to mix it for the Atmos, and I think they're gonna do like a theater, like kind of like little like small showings of it. But yeah, it was called Fanfare. It was at the Fonda last year, and we had a blast, man. The whole crew was great, and it was so fun. So yeah, crazy show with pyro, and yeah, we chopped her head off.
Oh, Jesus.
And the opera singing clown. That's like, it's pretty unique.
Tell me about one of the biggest failures you've made and what you learned from that.
I think the biggest failure I've learned is maybe like trying to impose some of my things to certain artists, and then it bites me in the ass. Trying obviously to help and make the show the best possible, and sometimes what I've learned now is always listen to the artist. Always, just listen to the artist.
Yeah.
Whatever they say, listen to it. You know. So yeah, that burned me.
Yeah.
That burned me once, and I learned.
What's your favorite song to mix on this tour?
On this tour, man, I love. There's a few of them. I really like one called Ricky's Song.
Okay.
Because he kind of like sings and he raps on it. And then there's one called Unana. The crowd kind of like sings a lot. And at the very top of the set, there's one called John Redcorn. It's a great song.
What's one genre of music you've always wanted to mix?
That I always wanted to mix but haven't mixed?
Yeah.
Man, I would love to make something like Rage Against the Machine.
Yeah.
That would be fun. Like kind of the bands I grew up listening when I was a teenager.
Yeah.
That'd be kind of fun to do something like that.
Yeah.
I know I kind of stayed in this like R&B, jazz, R&B, hip hop lane.
Yeah.
But I love R&B music, man. It's great.
With being on the road and traveling so much and chaos kind of being the norm for everything, how do you quiet it and quiet all the chaos? Or do you just thrive and love the chaos?
Well, I'm very much, when I'm on the road, I'm very much like kind of chill, man.
Yeah.
You know, whenever I get to like a day off in a hotel, I stay in. I work on studio projects or like other stuff from home and just stay in and kind of like relax. I wish I could say I've seen the whole world, depending on where I am. If I was in China this year and I just had to go and see like Beijing, Shanghai, see these cities and kind of like, okay, I'm here. I'm gonna like make an effort to go. But if I'm somewhere I'm tired, I just kind of lay low, you know?
Yeah.
And then, it's chaos, but then I go back home and it's very chill too. Mm-hmm. So I like that part of it. Like, you work for a month and now the next month I'm kind of not doing anything. I'm at home with my family and, just hanging out, being a dad and relaxing,
From somebody who's seen and used different kind of consoles, and you're kind of on the tip of the edge in terms of like technology, where do you see as the future of it? Where does it go from here? If it's already screens and all in a computer, where do you think?
Well, I think a lot of it's going into that like immersive.
Okay.
I think that's
You think we're going to take transducers and put them all over, or you think we're just going to all throw in AirPods?
I don't know, man. I think like a lot of these rooms would be fun to have more speakers and kind of place things around. You know, definitely in the studio it's going there because everybody listening on AirPods, they're listening to binaural a lot without them even knowing, like the general public is. So there's been a big emphasis by some of the labels and companies, you know, like Apple and others to like kind of push that forward. So I think that's coming along. As far as consoles, I don't know, man. Like, you need like faders and buttons, you know? More faders and more buttons. I don't know. Maybe some. Well, now it's a lot of the studio technology is coming into the live world.
Yeah.
For example, I have a relationship with Oak Sound that makes like Soothe.
Okay.
And they make Soothe live, but then after like the whole Soothe live and all these VST hosts that are getting released now by Furnia and Waves does it, and like Yamaha has a thing. Like, it's funny because they told me it kind of changed their way of thinking because now they build a new plugin. They're thinking about low latency mode from the start.
Sure.
Before, they were more thinking like they made Soothe and Soothe 2. They were thinking, oh, it's in the studio. It can have 4,000 samples of latency. Who cares?
Yeah.
You know? But, you know, it's like, oh, well, now we want to put it in the live world. So that's like their whole process of creating these plugins now is like, oh, I need a zero latency, at least a mode in this plugin where it could be zero latency and still perform sonically in a good way.
Yeah.
And I don't make plugins, but that sounds like a challenge to me.
Yes,
that sounds rough. So I know that all these hosts now that are running VST plugins on the live consoles are feeding back into the companies that make all these plugins. Because, you know, Waves was ahead of the game with that because a lot of their plugins are zero latency.
Yeah.
But a lot of other smaller companies that make boutique kind of tools that are super cool, now they're thinking, hey, there's a whole other market out there to, you know, get our tools used in a live show. And engineers are always looking for, you know, new stuff to try out and use. So I think that's already here, and I think it's gonna be a big move in the next few years. And then we'll see like about all this like formats, man. I wish we could all just get along, like Dante and ABB and SoundGrid and this and that. It's like, oh man, I wish it could be just like one thing, you know, like AES, you know, like an XLR cable.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping that that might be wishful thinking, but I'm hoping that maybe gets solved to the point where like, I would love this console to just natively work with Dante. Why not? Another network protocol, but like it's like each company kind of has their own thing, and it's all proprietary. So I wish we could have more standards and more people adopt them, and then we can have, you know, simpler integration. You know.
Sure. What's the best piece of advice you've gotten from one of your mentors?
Man, probably to stay calm and learn to say no if something doesn't work, or if there's no budget, or they're trying to lowball you on your price. Like, just trying to just learn that, you know, stay relaxed. If I'm home for a couple months, that's fine. Something will come up, you know. And when I was starting out, I was always terrified. You know, like, what am I gonna be doing in October? Shit, October's coming up. And you know, one of my mentors, Cheney, was like, dude, just relax. Negotiate what you're worth, you know, negotiate what you bring to the table. And if they say no, something else will come up.
Yeah.
It's, and then that I've learned, like a lot of times, the same people that told you, no, we can't do that number, for example, they'll call you 3 weeks into the tour, like, oh, you know what? We need you here. So I've had to do that a couple of times where I'm like, all right, I'm available, or worse, like, oh, I'm not available.
Yeah.
I booked something else.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's a big one. Like, learn to negotiate. Send a deal memo, man. Like, it's something so simple, but Cheney taught me to do that too. You talk on the phone with somebody for a gig, they hire you over the phone. Very easy. Just write an email with exactly what you spoke about on the phone. This is what we agreed to. Just want to make sure it's all good. And they hit reply back, yes. That's a contract in the United States. You know, it's like, that's a verbal agreement.
There you go. That's
simple,
a good one.
Simple, man. But it's like, oh, I said this, you said that. Well, if you write it right when you finish the phone call, you remember what you said.
Yeah.
Everything that was spoken, work out the details, and then from there on, it'll be smoother for everybody involved.
Set expectations.
Yes, and then you're not having to go back to management or whoever and, oh, but I said this and that. No, it's like, it's there. It's in an email. Everybody got it. So that's a big one that I got from Cheney. Is send a deal memo out as soon as you finish a phone call and you book a gig.
Wow. Well, man, I've probably taken up too much of your time. Thank you so much for this, man. If people want to follow you and you follow your career, where can they follow you at?
Probably Instagram's the best. Manu Audio.
Okay.
Yeah, Manu Audio. MANU Audio.
Okay. Or come to a Sir show.
Or come
near
to a Sir
you.
show. Thank you, Doc.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, baby.